Go. Okay, and I think it looks like mostly everyone is here. So I think we can go ahead and get started. Like I said, it's good to see you all and to see some faces here. Welcome to session 1 of the Simulated Workplace Leadership Series. Today, we will be outlining the structure and basics of the program and working together to define leadership and also to take a deep dive into your style of leadership and defining your leadership signature. So before we really jump into the content, we'll just take a few moments for welcome and introductions and, an opportunity for you all to learn a little bit about the series, learn about our team, but most importantly, learn a little bit about the other company leaders and schools who are participating in this series. So a little bit about me. My name is Kayla Benson. I am a program manager with the Adventure Group. I've been with Adventure for about 8-9 months now. And prior to that, I worked at a child advocacy center and I was the executive director at our local CASA for Kids. And I guess I would say that my leadership journey officially started when I was about 19 and decided to take a Leadership 201 Basics course at WVU. And I think I signed up for that course thinking, what all is there to learn about leadership? This will probably be pretty easy and there can't be that much to it, but I learned more than I ever would have imagined. And, we took a deep dive into good leadership and bad leadership and different styles of leadership. And I really loved learning about it so much that I decided to pursue the leadership minor. And from there, I went on to get my master's in public administration from WVU and then kind of jumped right into my career. So in addition to myself, we have Chris Leonard with the Adventure Group joining us today. So I'll let Chris introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. Like she said, my name is Chris. I am a program coordinator and family engagement specialist through the Adventure Group and West Virginia Family Engagement Center. I'm really excited that you all are here today. We had our first session this morning, and I'm very excited for this afternoon session. I graduated from WVU not too long ago. I got a master's in, or I got a BS in broadcast journalism, and then I studied business communications as my minor. And so that's basically what I do at the Adventure Group. I do a lot of communications work and it makes me really happy. I'm really happy that you guys are all on this pathway to build your skill sets and to understand what it's like to work in the real world. And I think it's very brave of you all to be here today and to learn from this presentation and from our sessions. And I'm just really happy that you guys are here. So I'm looking forward to seeing you and seeing your answers. And if you guys have any questions, don't be afraid to ask us or email us after the session is over. And we look forward to talking to you.
Thanks, Chris. So as we said, we're with the Adventure Group, but funding for this project for the Simulated Workplace Leadership Series is from the Appalachian Regional Commission. And we are so grateful for this funding. We've been able to do this series 6 to 7 times over the last few years with different schools and sites in West Virginia. And we are especially excited this time because we have 5 sites collaborating and sharing with this cohort. So to give you all a little bit more of a feel for who else is in the room and on your screen, you represent companies and leaders from 5 simulated workplace sites. So Wyoming, Mingo, Boone, Calhoun-Gilmer, and Wetzel. And as Chris mentioned, we did have a morning session. So we went through this once this morning and that was great. So we're happy to have you all here with us this afternoon. Because we have so many great schools and sites participating, we really wanted to figure out a way for this to be as interactive as possible between all of this, because I know that no one just wants to sit and listen to me talk the entire time. So we'll be using menti.com through today's session, and you can access Menti through a phone, your Chromebook, a laptop, or really any device that has internet access. In addition to that, Chris and I will be monitoring the chat in the Zoom. So please feel free to use that chat anytime you have questions, need clarification, would like more info, or if you want us to go back and look at another slide that we've already passed. So to give you a better idea of this picture of everyone that's working in this session, we'd like you to go ahead and sign into menti.com. And Chris will turn to the screen that has the website and the code at the top. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to get logged in. And then once you are, don't log out because we'll be using this a few times throughout the session today. But if you would just go ahead and get logged in if you can and enter which school you represent, which site. And if you don't have access to menti.com right now, that's okay. This is just gonna, like I said, hopefully give us a little bit more of a visual picture and interactive piece to the session today, but no stress if you're not able to get on it. Okay, so we've got some responses coming in. Lots from Mingo Central in Wyoming. Calhoun Gilmer, Butzel. Great. Okay, so a good mix. And I know that we had quite a few folks from Boone this morning, so I'm not sure that any of them will be joining us this afternoon. But if you're from Boone and you haven't logged on to Menti, that's okay. But like I said, this just gives us a little bit of a glimpse of who all will be responding to these polls and who all will be participating today. Okay, Calhoun Gilmer, you're moving up there. Great. Okay, so on the next slide, if you just keep that Menti open on your device, it's going to ask you your name, your simulated workplace company, and why you chose CTE. So if you just take a couple of minutes to fill those responses in, they'll start popping up on this screen here, and we can kind of take a look at, everybody's why and who they are and what company they represent. And I know this one takes a little longer because there's a little more to the question. So we'll just give it a couple of seconds for more to start rolling in. Someone from construction at Calhoun Gilmer, that's great. Learning more about what the healthcare field consists of, awesome. Always had a love for it since you were a kid. That's a good career to move into then. Need to learn more about it. Eagle Electric Company to get a hands-on experience with electrical work. That's fantastic. Pastry and hospitality work. You'd love to express your creativity through food. That's great. A friend connected you. Busted knuckle garage because you know what to do in there. I like that. Wanted to learn more about coding, a chance to get certifications to help you in the future. These are all great. And I hope you all can see all of these as well to read the ones that I'm not reading through. Chose CTE because computers are your marketable skill, but computer skills are a very good skill to have for sure. You wanted to be ready for the classroom and to work with kids. That's awesome. It's what your family's done and what you've always wanted to do. These are really great responses. Thank you all. Wanted to learn more about nursing and one day become an oncology nurse. That's fantastic. Get a feel for the real world environment. I'm sure you're getting. That's great. Been around a garage your whole life and wanted to learn more about what your family does. These are great. So lots of family connections and family inspirations. Lots of interest in learning more about, what you hope to be doing in the future. Learn more about careers in law enforcement and laws in general. Program would look good on your record and help you in the future. Absolutely. Great. I'd like to just read through all of these, but I know we don't have time for that. This is just really helpful to just get a feel for who all we have here. Awesome. So as you can see, we have a great combination of a lot of leaders in our different companies. And as you reflect on this, we want you to remember that you all are company leaders. And as we work through this series, we really want you to assume the role of a leader as we address these different topics and work through the activities. Oh, there are even more coming in. maybe get a job from the program. Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Well, like I said, I would like to read these all, but I know for the sake of time we can't, but I appreciate your thoughtful responses here. So Chris, I guess we can move on to the next slide. Okay, so now that you have a feel for who Chris and I are, we want to talk a little bit more about specifics of the program itself. So the way this is set up, we have 4 one-hour live sessions and 4 online learning modules, and then 1 site-based leadership project. So your handbook that you should have in front of you walks you step by step through all of the sessions and modules. And if you go to page 1, there's a space at the bottom, and we'd like you to go ahead and fill in the other dates for the sessions. So we have today's obviously October 12th, and then the next session is October 21st. And then in November, we have a session on November 1st and again on November 9th. Okay, so if you've got those written down, in addition to seeing Chris and I and working with us, you'll also be seeing and hearing from Amber Ravenscroft. And Amber did a quick video that breaks down the specifics of the online modules and the project that you'll be working on. So we'll watch that now.
I'm sorry, everybody.
Hi guys, welcome to the Simulated Workplace Leadership Series. We are so excited to be here with you today. Before we dive into the live workshop, we just want to do a quick overview of our Leadership Legacy project and what will be involved with the online course and that project submission. So let's go ahead and define legacy. What does it mean to have a legacy? A legacy is something that's part of your history. It remains from an earlier time and is really the impact that you make. Your legacy can be positive or negative, and we really encourage you as youth in your community to think about how you can make a positive impact in your community. And so what we're going to talk about is building out a leadership project that solves a problem or addresses a problem in your community. And we'd love to just have you reflect on what legacy do you want to leave for your school, for your community, and how can you leave it better than you found it. There's a great motivational speech that we'll also include as part of the website that you can listen to about why leaving a legacy is so important. So how are we going to build out this project? The online modules will actually cover 4 topics. First, we'll define innovation and what design thinking is, and then we will introduce you to Intuit Education's Design for Delight model, which goes over 3 steps, building out impactful projects that can help you leave a legacy in your community. So the first step will be deep customer empathy. We'll get an understanding of how problems are impacting people in our community. We'll then go broad to narrow to help come up with a lot of solutions and narrow to one that might be most impactful by using different ideation and brainstorming techniques. And then finally, we'll go over rapid experiments with customers so that we can ensure that the projects or the ideas that we are presenting as a potential leadership legacy project are meaningful for the people that are really facing those problems. The key to remember here is that design thinking and the overall online course will give you a helpful skill to help develop meaningful and impactful programs beyond just your leadership legacy projects, but throughout the rest of your career. So the project itself, how this will look, once you've gone through the online modules, you will have developed an independent idea for a project that solves a problem that you personally care about and that you are sure also impacts others in your community. You'll then come together as a site, whether that be at Calhoun Gilmer or our students at Wyoming or any of the sites that are participating in this program, and collaboratively design a project based on those independent ideas that will leave a legacy in your community for all of you to work on. So you might decide one person's idea is really good and go with that. You might have multiple individuals that are working on a similar problem and take bits and pieces of those, but ultimately you will come together to collaborate and lead an effective team to build a project that will leave a legacy in your community. So when you are finished up with the online course, the 2 components that you will submit to us around the leadership project are an action plan and a 2-minute video pitch on your idea that you will submit to our team and the West Virginia Department of Education for funding. We're offering $1,000 per site to implement this idea in spring 2022. So all of this is included on the website. There are helpful documents to frame out your idea and to give you an overview of what needs to be included in your pitch. And I really encourage you to lean on each other. You all are rock stars and have such strong skills to bring to the table to build out a project that will really leave a legacy in your community. So again, online course, 4 modules to help you develop an independent idea, and then you will collaboratively come together to form an action plan and a 2-minute pitch of your idea that you will submit to our team at the conclusion of this fall program to be implemented in spring 2022. If you have any questions, please reach out to Kayla, Chris, or myself, and we will be happy to get in touch and help coach or support you throughout this process. Thank you guys. We can't wait to see what you come up with.
Okay, so like I said, just a brief background on the project itself. To access this website where the modules and project specifics are located that Amber was talking about, you can scan the QR code that's in your handbook on page 2. And in addition, I just dropped the link in the chat box. So however you want to access it, Chris is going to actually pull up the website so we can just do a quick walkthrough of what it looks like so you know what to expect when you log on and see that. Maybe. There we go. Okay, so this is what the homepage of that website is going to look like when you pull it up. There's a little bit of an overview of the project itself. And then the first thing that you come to is a student pre-survey link. So what we would like for you to do before our next session on October 21st is take a couple of minutes to get on and complete that pre-survey link. And that'll just give us an idea of your understanding and current knowledge from your current perspective of all things leadership. So if you just take a few moments to do that sometime, we would greatly appreciate it. Right beneath the student pre-survey are the live leadership workshops. So you'll see the Leadership 101 that we're doing today, and then the following 3 that will happen on those dates that I gave you at the beginning. Right below that are the self-paced video series. So those are your modules. So you'll see the first one there is bigger at the top, and then the 3 others are below. So you can go through those videos at your own pace. And then there's an online submission form that you can submit the assignment through. Our hope is that you would do 2 of those in October and 2 in November. So before our next session on the 21st, we'd like you to complete that student survey and go ahead and complete your first online module. And then below that, you have a video and some templates and specifics on that leadership legacy project that Amber discussed. And I know she went over the basics of it, but I just want to reiterate the potential to win that competition for $1,000 per site that goes directly towards implementation of your project, which is really huge. We want to encourage you all to get creative, be passionate, take ownership of this idea, and really have fun with this competition. And, with all of this, just keep in mind, I saw so many comments come through about preparing for your future career and doing things to set you up for your career. And you'll get a certificate of completion from this program itself. And I think that these projects are another really great way to build your resumes and your skill sets, and something that can really set you apart as you're moving into your career and, applying for jobs. Okay, so we'll go back to the slides for today. And if you all have any website questions, challenges, just feel free to reach out to us anytime with questions. And Chris is going to pull up today's agenda for us, but it's also listed on page 3 of your handbook. And so today we're really going to work together to define leadership, differentiate between leaders and managers, identify 21 qualities of a leader, and then really review common leadership styles and start to identify your own. And then in addition, we'll work to connect your leadership and the leadership things that you learned today to your simulated workplace protocols as it relates to company norms. So first up is defining leadership. What is leadership? I think that any of us could do a quick search online and find many, many definitions of what leadership is from many different perspectives. But what we'd like you to do at first is just take a couple of minutes and jot down in your handbook how you define leadership. And there aren't right or wrong answers. This is just, we want this to be your definition of leadership. Okay, so on the next slide, you will see the Peter Nordhaus formal definition of leadership. Our team likes this definition a lot because it pretty simply captures the essence of a leader and the influence that they have to work towards a common goal and to influence other people. So as you think about this definition of leadership and the definition that you just wrote down, we want you to take a couple more minutes to reflect on and write down whether or not you consider yourself to be a leader and why or why not. And, don't be afraid to dig deep here. This can be your leadership role in your company, at school, in your life out of school, on a sport team or at church or just in your community and family in general. Do you feel you are a leader and why or why not? So this is something that we want you to come back to and to revisit. I'm not going to ask you to share out or to tell anyone, but it's really something we want you to continue to reflect on throughout this program. For decades, there's been this debate on whether leaders are born or made. And there are many, many different opinions, but as I really reflect on this, I'm a believer that the answer is both. I think that some people are born with a leader's mindset, and without much effort, they take the lead in a positive way from a young age. But I also believe that some of the best leaders are made leaders. To give you a little bit of a personal example, just real life example, I have a younger brother. He is 6'8" and charismatic, and he has always had an outgoing personality that gravitated towards leadership roles. I, on the other hand, I know you can't tell because I'm not standing up, but I am nowhere near 6'8". I'm more in the 5'8" range. And I fall more into the made leader category, I guess, because by nature, I am more reserved and quiet. If I'm being honest, as I reflect back on being in high school, I would not have been the first one to speak up or to jump to take on a leadership role, but it's something that's evolved over time. And I really think that both types of leaders are fantastic, whether you're a born leader or a made leader. But I wanted to point this out to you so that maybe if you're a person who wrote down that you don't consider yourself a leader, that's okay. And sometimes I think that we think about leadership in a box and in a certain way, but not all leaders are outgoing or outspoken. There are really, really strong leaders who are more quiet and reserved, but very effective. And I really think the beauty of leadership is that you don't have to fit into one of those molds. It can be a combination of both. So just keep that in mind as you think about how you feel about yourself as a leader and as you evolve in that in the future. So thinking about roles, we'll move on to talking a little bit about leadership and power, specifically position power versus personal power. So position power in leadership comes from an assigned position. So think about an office that someone holds or rank in a military position. Position power comes from an assignment of a title in a leadership role. And it's kind of, you're informed of that title that you have, and your leadership role comes from that. Thinking more about personal power, that comes more from your influence ability. So maybe someone doesn't have a specifically assigned title of leadership or power, but because of their capacity and ability to influence others, that power falls onto them. So thinking about those two, the position power and the personal power, which do you think is more helpful from a leadership perspective? And if you pull Menti.com back up, you can cast your vote there, and we'll get a feel for what the group as a whole thinks and where you all cast your votes. And there's no right or wrong answer. Just interesting to see what everybody else thinks and how different people think about things. Okay, we've got a few coming in, a lot of personal power.
Hey, this is Mingo Central. Is there any way that we can see the definition of those two words again?
Yes, yeah, we can go back to the last slide for sure. So the position power is the office or rank. So think a military rank, or when you're assigned a specific rank within a company or organization. And then the personal power is more your influence ability to be a leader by your influence of others. Is that good? There we go.
Yes, thank you.
No problem. Okay, so we've got a couple position power, a lot of personal power. Does anyone want to unmute and share any thoughts on this? Don't feel like you have to, but if anyone has an opinion or a thought on this, we'd be happy to hear it. Okay, well, this gives us a good snapshot of what all of you are thinking. It looks like right now we have 39 votes for personal power and then 3 for position power, just to give you a glimpse of that. I think it's important, thinking about position power and personal power, that as you phase into your career and even in what you're doing now, that you don't necessarily have to have that official title or position power to have the power to inspire and influence from where you are. And that sometimes that can make an even bigger difference. So just keep that in mind as you're thinking through this. We'll move on now to leading versus managing. So the terms leadership and management are often used interchangeably. And while there's definitely some overlap between them and the work that leaders and managers do, there are also a lot of differences. A leader might focus more on a company vision to guide change, where a manager might focus more on implementing processes. A leader might focus more on the people and influencing them to complete tasks, where a manager might focus more on the specific structure and systems to complete that task. And thinking back to the discussion of position versus personal power, a manager might have more concern with the hierarchy and the power and the ranking of title and specific roles, where leaders might focus more on fluid leadership and using their skills to develop and inspire others at all different levels. So does having the title of manager make a person a leader by default? I'm not in any way saying that managers aren't leaders and leaders aren't managers. I think we can all be both, but I just think it helps to identify where the differences are. And when I think about this, I worked at Subway as a sandwich artist for a few years when I was in high school, and I was very proud. And I should probably be embarrassed to admit that I still have the hat that says sandwich artist, because that was a big, exciting deal for me. But when I think about it, I think of the 2 managers that I had at Subway. We had Dee and we had Sam, and they were both great. But when I think back, Dee was definitely a manager. She came in with a clipboard. She checked off the tasks that we needed to be completing. She got on us and we were in trouble when we didn't complete those tasks. So we would fix them and do what we needed to and then clock out for the night. But Sam, on the other hand, went above and beyond to manage us using his leadership style. So he took it beyond the clipboard checklist that we had and really helped us to find value and worth in those tasks. So connecting the tasks to the customer experience. And it was really the difference between, knowing that there were supposed to be 6 tomato slices on a foot-long sub and paying attention to the fact that the customer who loves tomatoes will really enjoy the sandwich more if those 6 tomatoes were fresh and nicely placed on the sandwich. And I know that sounds kind of silly, but I think it really illustrates the difference between leading and managing and what we're talking about here. So thinking of that, it kind of brings us into the qualities and styles of a leader, So there are different styles, many different styles that a leader can possess. And you will see on page 5 of your handbook, the 21 indispensable qualities of a leader from the John Maxwell book. And they're also on the next slide. So these are the qualities that John Maxwell thinks are absolutely necessary for good leaders to possess. And I want you to look through this list and start to pick out and circle the 3 that you think are most important. And there are a few on here that I know I had to look up when I first read this book. Discernment was one of them. And in the book, John Maxwell says, smart leaders believe only half of what they hear. Discerning leaders know which half to believe. So when we think about discernment and leadership, it's really the ability to find the root of the matter and make good decisions. It relies on intuition and the ability to step back from a situation and see all sides. Another one that you might not be familiar with, servanthood. Maxwell says to get ahead, you put others first, and true leaders serve. They serve people in best interest. true leaders are motivated by loving others more than they love their own desire for personal gain. So that's really in the spirit of service and servanthood. And then teachability, I would say you all know what that means, but it's just a little harder to define when we're thinking about leadership. But basically as leaders, we can never be done learning. Maxwell says to keep leading, you keep learning, and your growth and ability determines who you are. So I think that's an important one too, and just one that's not as commonly used. So if there are others you aren't sure about, just make a note to look them up, or feel free to ask us in the chat or come off mute and ask us, and we'd be happy to define those for you. But like I said, just kind of look through that list and circle your top 3. And then as you're doing that, also take a second to jot down why you chose those 3 in your handbook. Okay, so as you have those, you can pull up your menti.com again and go ahead and enter in the top 3 that you chose. And then we'll see them start to pop up on the screen as you enter them. And as they're duplicated, that one will get bigger. So the one, if there are 1 or 2 that most people are picking, we'll see that get a little bit bigger on the screen, which is kind of neat to see which ones you all are thinking in common. This is interesting too, because I'm curious to see which ones you have in common with the morning session. And I'm already seeing a couple. See a lot of communication, problem solving, positive attitude, passion, character, focus, self-discipline. And again, there are no right or wrong answers here. This is just what connects to you and what you feel are important qualities. Now it looks like we have 41 responses. So I'll go ahead and tell you that communication is at the center, and I think it's the biggest one here. And it was also at the center and the largest word in the morning session as well, which is kind of interesting and very important. Awesome. So passion, listening, communication, positive attitude, commitment, character, responsibility, teachability, problem solving are some of our biggest ones. Those are great. Thank you all for sharing. So still thinking about qualities and who and what we want to be as leaders, let's read the 6 quotes on the next page. And I want you to write down the quote that speaks to you most when you think about your qualities that you chose and your leadership style. And then I want you to write down the one that speaks to you the most in your handbook. And then we'll vote on the next slide, but just take a couple of minutes to read through these. So quote 1, treat people as if they were what they ought to be, and you help them become what they are capable of being. Quote 2, I suppose leadership at one time meant muscles, but today it means getting along with people. Quote 3, I cannot give you the formula for success, but I can give you the formula for failure, which is to try to please everybody. Quote 4, do what you feel in your heart to be right, for you'll be criticized anyway. Quote 5, if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. And quote 6, do not follow where the path may lead, go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. So those are our 6 to choose from. And like I said, if you'll just jot down your favorite one in your handbook, there's a space for it. And then once you do that, we'll move on to the next slide and have you all vote on which of these quotes speaks to you. So we can kind of see another comparison of which ones you have in common and which ones might be different. Interesting. This is a little bit different than what we were seeing in this morning's session. So a lot of quote 4. And Chris, do you want to flip back to the quote page so we can just revisit that as we're looking? So quote 4 was, do what you feel in your heart to be right, for you'll be criticized anyway. We also saw, I think, a lot of the quote 6 that was growing to, do not follow where the path may lead, go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. Okay, we can go back to the results. Got a lot of quote 3 and 5 too, a few quote 1. It's so interesting to see this because as we really kind of dig deep within ourselves and think about who we are and who we want to be as leaders and the things that really connect to us when we think about qualities and which quote stands out to us, we see how different our leadership styles can look. And that's the really great thing about it. It can look different and still be very, very impactful. Okay, so we have about 43 votes. So I think that's probably the bulk of them. So interesting, in the morning session, just so you all know, quote 6 was the highest voted quote in the morning, but you all have voted for quote 4, and all of these are good quotes. So that discussion really gave us an idea of the qualities we think are important as leaders. So now we'll move on and kind of dive into the different leadership styles. So you'll see on the screen, but also in page 6 of your handbook, the 10 leadership styles. And as we go through them, I really want you to think about your leadership style within your company and also consider, is there a style that you might conflict with the most as you're working with them? So the first style is coach. So these leaders quickly recognize team members' strengths, weaknesses, and motivations to help others improve. Second is visionary. So they have powerful ability to drive progress and encourage change by inspiring employees and earning trust in new ideas. The third is servant. So they live by people first mindsets and believe when team members are personally and professionally fulfilled that they are more effective and regularly produce great work. And that really ties into that servanthood quality that we talked about just a little bit ago. The fourth is autocratic or authoritarian leadership, and that's focused primarily on results and efficiency. So they often make decisions alone or with a very small trusted group, and they aren't often going to the entire team to help come up with these answers to questions and in terms of decision making. The fifth is laissez-faire and a hands-off approach. So this is the opposite of autocratic. They focus mainly on delegating tasks and they provide limited supervision. The sixth is democratic or participative, and it's a combination of laissez-faire and autocratic. So they ask for input and consider feedback from the team before making these decisions. The seventh is pace setter, and this is a style that's effective for very fast results, and it's primarily focused on performance and setting high standards and accountability and achieving goals. The eighth is transformational, and so this is similar to coaching. They focus on clear communication, goal setting, and employee motivation, but it's more driven by the company objectives than coaching might be. Number 9 is transactional. So this is laser focused on performance. So they often establish incentive-based models, mentorship, and instruction for specific task completion. And then the 10th type of leadership style is bureaucratic. So this focuses on fixed duties within the chain of command where each employee has specific responsibilities with limited need for collaboration or creativity within the team. So if anyone wants to share out on which one they think they are and which they think they might conflict with the most, we would love to hear that, but we don't have a mentee, or we're not going to put anybody on the spot to share that, but it's definitely something we want you to keep thinking about in your current leadership and as you phase into other leadership roles in your career. So does anyone want to share? Okay. That's all right. And this, like everything else, we want you to keep revisiting this. You know, as we continue to go through this leadership content, we want you to come back to this, and you can change your answers and add to your answers as you think more through this as we work through the activities. So now we're going to connect the dots. So we've talked a lot about leadership itself and define leadership. We've talked about qualities, styles, and approaches, but how does this connect to your simulated workplace protocols? So the specific protocols tied to this session are shown on the next slide, and they are the student-led companies and company name and handbook. So considering these protocols, we'll move on to our team activity for today, which is building norms. So in just a little bit, we're going to break out into our company teams. And when you do, I want you to consider your company norms. There we go, there's the activity. So I want you to think through each of these questions as you work with your company co-lead. And then on page 7 of your workbook, you can fill that out together. So you'll consider existing norms in your company handbooks. You'll identify norms that would be potentially beneficial. And then you'll create at least 3 new norms for this leadership series cohort moving forward. So it is about 1:30. So we've got about 15 minutes left. So I will give you about 10 minutes to work through this, and we will regroup at 1:40. And then when you come back, we would like if someone would be able to unmute and share what you all came up with. And the way we're going to do this, I know that some of you all had co-leaders in the morning session. So if you did, and you're in the same room, just find someone that you can group up with to talk through this with. And then if you are remote and working from home or on an individual device, if you could just type the name of your co-leader in the chat box, and then we could put you in a breakout room to work with them on this. And if we don't need breakout rooms, that's okay. But the main thing is just getting with one other person and working through these to identify each of these 3 questions, but particularly number 3, which is creating those 3 norms for the cohort moving forward. Just let us know if you have any questions. Okay, so we'll take about 3 more minutes here and then we can come back together and share out. Okay, so if everybody's had enough time, we could go ahead and start to regroup. And if anyone wants to volunteer to go first to kind of share out what you all discussed, that'd be great. Okay, great. I see Calhoun Gilmer there.
Hello, we're from Calhoun Gilmer. This is the executive leadership team from Coyote Beautiful Bistro.
Awesome.
3 norms that we want to keep moving forward is good customer service, safety measures stay in place, and our clock in, clock out regimen.
Awesome. Those sound great. Thank you all for sharing. All right, who wants to share next?
Okay, Mingo Central, go ahead and go.
Okay.
We discussed safety, of course, and communication, being respectful to one another, and organization, making sure organization is a key factor to focus on.
Awesome. Yeah, those are all great. And safety seems to be a really consistent theme, as well as that communication piece. So those are ones that came up this morning and continue to come up this afternoon. Thanks for sharing. Who would like to share next?
The Wyoming County Career Technical Center, along with our pre-engineering drafting, came up with prioritization of materials for upcoming jobs as far as purchasing, when things will be needed, categorizing and prioritizing the succession of what material will be needed when.
Great. Great. I imagine those are very important with what you all are doing. So those sound great. Thanks for sharing. And it looks like we have another from Calhoun Gilmer that would like to share.
Our 3 existing norms we would like to keep are weekly evaluations, safety reviews, and good communication.
Awesome. Awesome. And we're back to communication and safety. So like I said, we just keep hearing those. Anybody else like to share? Probably have time for 1 or 2 more. Don't know if anyone from Wetzel might want to share or anyone else. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all so much. And I hope that was beneficial to kind of think through what we talked about in terms of leadership today, and then connect it to your existing protocols and think through what you're doing. So appreciate you sharing. And just so you know, that's kind of the setup for these live sessions as we move forward. We obviously won't have as much of the introductory session specific information at the front, but we'll talk through the topic and then we'll connect them to your existing protocols. And then we'll get together, you know, as your team with your leaders and work through an activity towards the end of the session. So just so you have an idea of that going forward. Thanks again, everybody, for sharing. And, you know, we really hope that you enjoyed this content today. And we want you to feel completely comfortable reaching out to us with any questions. You know, if there's anything we talked about that you want to learn more on, if there anything that you have questions about that you want to reach out to us, Chris and I will both drop our emails in the chat box so that you can feel free to email us anytime. And I know that your instructors have our email addresses too. So please don't hesitate to reach out. We would love to connect with you more. I know that it's a lot of content crammed in an hour session, so we are happy to discuss anything further if you'd like to. I'll go ahead and put that in the chat now, my email address. And then Chris will be leading your next session that is on October 21st. And the topic next time is communication and delegation. So before we meet on the 21st, please remember to get onto the website, complete the student pre-survey, and then complete the first of the 4 online learning modules. And as you have questions, if you have problems with anything, please reach out to us and let us know. We are definitely happy to help. And it's been nice to meet you all. I appreciate you participating today. It's so great to have you in this program. And we really are excited to be working with you and to be working through this with you. And so I hope you have a good rest of the afternoon. Reach out to us, please, if you have questions about anything or if you'd like more information. And we will look forward to seeing you on October 21st. Have a good afternoon.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. I love that.